Well, lads. The time has finally come upon us. After over a year of its announcement, Side Order, the Splatoon 3 DLC, has finally released. And initial impressions, 90% great, and then 10% and I want to talk about it. So in case you've been just unaware of what's going on with Splatoon lately, and you don't keep up with all the updates, Splatoon 3 got a season pass with 2 DLC waves. The first one just came with basically cosmetics of going to the first location from Splatoon 1 as a lobby, which, I'm gonna be honest right now real quick, it wasn't incredible. It was nice to be like seeing this area reimagined and available on Switch as it was stuck on the Wii U. That's pretty cool, and some new NPCs always nice. But there wasn't any exclusive items or any extra like bells and whistles, at least as I can remember. It was more of like, oh, okay, here's a little fun thing to tie us over until the big, massive course is gonna arrive. And I say that it's called Side Order, which is a bit of a funny. It's kind of funny when I think about it, how that's the big part of the DLC. Anyways, Side Order is here. What is it? What is it about? What's going on? The basics of it is a Splatoon roguelike, or roguelite, as it were. What's the difference between roguelike and roguelite? Well, roguelikes are games where you die over and over and over again, trying to get a certain distance. You know what a roguelike is? Like, what is it? Binding of Isaac, Spelunky, of course, Spelunky 2, of course, which is a very good game if you haven't played Spelunky 2. I love these games. Hades, that's another one. It's a very common genre, and for obvious reasons, it is a bloody blast to play through. You know, like, of course it's annoying. You die at the end of a boss and you're like, oh crap, this sucks. I have to go through all of this again. But that's sort of a point. It's like, oh, one more run. Especially Spelunky, guys. Spelunky is so much fun. But we're not talking about Spelunky today. We're talking about Splatoon, Splatoons. We're talking about Splatoons. So what's going on with this version? So this is a roguelite, which means that it's not necessarily the same run every single time, where you can do slightly smaller upgrades and stuff to make it easier each time you play. And the way this is introduced and works is so good. So you get this little currency called pearls every time you die, or when you use a brand new color chip. And then you can go back to the lobby area before you do another run, go up the tower, and you can upgrade, your health, you can upgrade the little pearl bot, you can upgrade so much stuff, and it's a lot more than I was expecting. Like, I feel like there is an overwhelming amount of customization in this regard, and with the color palettes as well. Like, for player customization of experience, it is packed to the brim with options, which is so cool. Like, it is way more than I was expecting, and for that reason, it is that much more exciting. So what's the main objective? You're going up floor by floor. You could be doing a bunch of different activities. You could be destroying these orbs that spawn monsters. You could be just doing a certain area of turf, which you have to cover and keep it there for a certain amount of seconds. You can push an 8-ball, which is like a slight variation of the missions from Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, which is kind of a fun throwback. There's a bunch of stuff. Well, I say that, this is where one of the little pickles comes in. I will say, in comparison to the amount of color palettes, to the amount of upgrade options, there is a surprisingly limited amount of mission types. I say that there's a lot of variety with them, don't get me wrong. Like, there could be a certain one on a specific course, and it can work very well like that, or you can do a different mission on the same course. There's a lot of variety in terms of things being remixed and that. Like, there's even like these bonus and like danger options, which means like sometimes you'll be attacking in the dark, or you'll have certain things disabled and stuff like that. But the real issue to me, or not even an issue, it's less of an issue, it's just like the one thing that gets me going, I hope that doesn't get annoying in a week, is the lack of enemy variety and the lack of mission objectives. Because even though they might be remixed in one way or another, it's still maintain this turf, maintain pushing this little payload thingy, you gotta kill these 3 little wheelie things. Oh, it's just sort of the same thing over and over again to a certain extent. Like, of course they're always a little bit different, and they're always still fun, don't get me wrong, but I just wish there was like, in comparison to how much variety there is in every other aspect of this game, it's just such a shame that it falls a tiny bit short on this, and it doesn't leave a sour taste in my mouth, perhaps, but I'm just very curious on how this game will age in terms of something which you want to play over and over again when there is this obvious case of not that many enemies and not that many objectives. I think it was only like 5 objectives, and I think there's about 12 enemies. Actually, let me check right now. I will say about the enemies, the fact that they're called gelatins is awesome. Like, that is such a clever name, and the designs are so much fun. So there's 12 enemies in total, which isn't bad at all, but actually, hang on a second. It's more like 10. Because under all the enemies, one of them is a portal, and one of them is a homing missile, which comes out of another enemy. So really, there's 10 enemies, if we're being completely honest. And a couple bosses, which I won't really talk about because spoily. But yeah, every 10 floors, you've got a boss, and even still there's not as much variety in the amount of bosses as well. They are still very, very fun, but it's still a case of, come on, one or two more. Even if they were just remixed old bosses from previous Splatoon games, I would have loved that. Like, that would have been so much fun to have, like, these remixed mechanical gelatin versions of old bosses. Even if they were tweaked slightly to make it easier or harder, that would have been a lot of fun. However, saying that, you might think, oh, that's what Madz is talking about as his biggest conundrum, as his biggest debacle with this DLC. No, it's not that at all. It really isn't. My biggest issue really is to do with the enemies, right? But not necessarily the enemy variety. What it really is the enemies overwhelm you in a unfair way in certain circumstances. Now, you hear me say that and you think Madz is obviously just bad at games, and that is very true. But this is what I'm talking about. Oh my god! I'll be playing and in a very aware spot of where I am on the map and feel comfortable, and then all of a sudden I'll get hit by an enemy and I won't die right away. I'll lose a bit of armor, I'll be, get a bit of ink in my face, but it's that I fall off the map and lose my life. That's what happens. And so it creates this really frustrating circumstance where that is 99% of a reason why I died. Like, this happened on the final floor. I was about to finish the game. I was about to complete my first run, and I died because one of those stupid big old headed fish came over to me and said, "All right, mate, how you doing?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. How are you?" And then he bonked me on the head. I flew off the fucking map and died. And that doesn't leave a very good taste in my mouth, especially when I haven't been upgrading the lives, because I think, oh, that's kind of a boring reason. I shouldn't really need to do that. But I'm dying in such a cheap way. I'm like upgrading everything. I'm upgrading my healing. I'm upgrading my, damage resistance. I'm upgrading all the stuff to do with a Pearlbot. I'm upgrading all the fun stuff, or things which will make me survive and I think will make the game more fun versus just an extra life, an extra life, an extra life. When I think of, like, what's the funnest upgrade, lives are by far the most boring. It is just insurance, really. It's like, you want to be on the edge of your seat with a lot of these things. But when you die to something which feels so cheap, even if it's not necessarily the game's fault and it's your fault for playing in a certain position, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And it's like, I'm someone who talks about games as a, professionally, if that's true, bloody hell. That's a strange sentence. But still, I'm thinking of someone who might pick up this DLC, who's a casual fan, maybe not even like a huge Splatoon person, maybe someone who just plays the Splatoon 3 here and there. I'm like, oh, this seems kind of fun. Let me give that a try. Or people who are familiar with roguelikes, where these games are supposed to be so accurate to the user in terms of every mistake is your fault, that this slightly fake out, mid sort of fake death is just so frustrating when it happens. And again, as I'm saying, it happened 90% of the time of why I died. And you might say, Madz, what are you talking about? You're obviously just shit at the game. And mate, listen, if you're saying that, have you tried the DLC? If you're saying that and you haven't tried it, give it a try and tell me what percentage of, or what the ratio is to dying from being bounced off the map and dying from other reasons, please. And if you have played the DLC already, tell me your ratio as well in the comments, because I'm quite curious. Am I the only one who's dying this often to it? Or is this a world-renowned issue across the Splatoon community? Let me know in the comments below. And really, with that, we're going to leave it here because, bloody hell, I want to do another run and prove my point wrong.